I'm sure that you all enjoyed that break and opportunity, of course, to network, continue the discussions. And I hope that you spilled more ideas than coffee. And I'm more than ready now to dive back into our inspiring journey. There's some exciting announcements before we get into it in terms of our Coca-Cola competition. Well, if you've been following our social media pages, you would have seen that 5 lucky ticket holders will win a mini Coca-Cola Beverages South Africa desk fridge, and those lucky winners will be announced just before lunch. Once again, a big thank you to our generous partners for these amazing giveaways. Well, with all of our minds re-energized and our heads and hands full of new treasures, let's gear up for the next part of the conference. Now, let's explore some more groundbreaking initiatives and hear from some visionary leaders that are shaping the future of sustainability. Our next panel discussion will be delving into renewable energy solutions. What are Africa's best options for financing the just energy transition? Please welcome our panelists to the stage. Simpiwe Ngwenya is the Program Manager at Mitigation South African Presidential Climate Commission. Round of applause. Coming up, Des Miller, Managing Director, New Energy Developments. Dr. Stanley Smelani is Head Stakeholder Relations, ESG and Sustainability at Sasol. And Devon Pillay, CEO, LTM Energy. And leading this panel discussion, please welcome your moderator, Head Communications and Outreach, South African Presidential Climate Commission, Blessing Manali.
Thanks, Chair. How are you? Good. How's it, Boot? Good, how are you? Thanks. I don't know whether this is the part where I must say something. Okay, thank you very much to Top Comedia. You're looking all great in your eminence. As I've been introduced, my name is Blessing Manali. I'm from the Presidential Climate Commission. I came in earlier and I listened to the very earlier exciting but disturbing interaction, and I hope that will take it further. But before I actually kick in, I just want to break from protocol and acknowledge amongst you, your eminence, a very special delegation from the indigenous peoples. As we discuss sustainability, we must already discuss the impact and the interest of the indigenous peoples on their lands, on renewable energy, particularly for this session, and on what their interests are. But I think most importantly, because we want to leave no one behind, and sustainability is about that. As already said by Carol, today we are discussing how Africa can lead into the renewable energy space, and we'll be speaking technology, finance, social compacting, inclusivity, innovation, base load, renewable, solar, wind, green hydrogen, investments, regional cooperation. And I know I've given you 15 topics, ladies and gentlemen, so you'll have to just see what you can do in 40 minutes with those topics. But let me also open, I've got also a mantra, and I was inspired by the previous speaker. I think she was from Sasol, who said that you won't have, if you don't have the earth, you won't have the money to spend it. And I want to take it, Old Mutual. Sorry, maybe I must take my insurance with them after that mistake. I mean, my mantra, and it's an old Indian poem that says, very short, that when the last river is dry, the last tree has been cut, only when will then humanity discover that you cannot eat money. So whatever money you'll have, you'll never be able to put it in your tummy. And then that's a more of environmental mantra. But in my youth days, when I was still thinking that I can be a socialist, my mantra was, one day the poor will discover that they've got nothing else to eat but the rich. And you can choose how you interpret the bad. Whether it is only the rich that will eat, or whether it is the poor that will eat the rich. But having said that, ladies and gentlemen, let me once again welcome our panel and start with Mr. Muller. You'll have to bell the cat.
It's Devon Pillay.
Is it Devon that's starting?
Yes. Well, you are the man.
Yes, I think that I'm going to take a gamble and start with Des, who's Managing Director for New Energy Developments. And maybe Des, briefly, what does Africa's energy market outlook looks like in the next 5, 10 years? Or anything?
Let's talk about the current scene in Africa at the moment. Africa is deep in energy poverty. There's isolated areas that are doing well. Even South Africa, with its abundance of power, has joined Africa in energy poverty with our load shedding as well. And it's certainly not going to be an overnight solution. We're probably going to live with this for the next 10 years when we develop real solutions, effective solutions to handle our energy situation. But Africa is rich in natural energy resources. We've got lots of coal. We've got lots of massive hydro potential as well. We've got gas as well. We've got renewable energy resources over the continent. And we've got nuclear energy that can also join the fleet of power solutions for Africa. What is important is that we use the technology that we have domestically. Fortunately, we are also connected with 5 power pools. The Southern African Power Pool connects 12 or 14 countries in Southern Africa, and there is a little bit of trading going on, but mostly everybody is looking after their own needs. And I've looked at various projects in Africa over the last 20 years. There's been very viable projects in Africa, but they haven't moved. They haven't even developed. And just recently, we've got EDF from France developing Mpanda Nkua in Mozambique, which is a massive hydro resource, and that will plug in straight into Mozambique's economy and the Southern African Power Pool. And that's the solution that we need to start looking at. We cannot resolve our energy problems as individual countries. We've got to start thinking as a region, as an African region, to try and deal with our energy situation. And we could find very plausible and effective solutions as a region rather than just as individual countries.
Thank you very much for that. Actually, we'll come back to that. I mean, the issue of regional cooperation, it's quite what we all should be thinking about, and you've given some typical examples. And
I just want to add, in 2010, Africa was consuming $50 billion worth of diesel for informal generation because they didn't have a major plan, a strategy plan, using all those natural energy resources. We were consuming $50 billion worth of diesel since 2010. And we're now 12, 13 years down the road. It's $650 billion that has been spent on diesel, and we've got nothing to show for it.
That's a lot of our
other
money.
than empty tanks.
Oh, well, indeed. We'll come back to the numbers and where will the money come from, or where does it continue to come from?
Exactly.
But Simpiwe, Des has just outlined the various options. I mean, do you think, or are we leading as Africa, or is there opportunities for Africa leading in the just energy transition? I know that in South Africa it's a hot topic. You wake up, you hear somebody saying jet, and you look up in the eye, think that it's an aeroplane, but it's actually the just energy transition. What are options? What are we looking at?
Okay, good morning, everyone. I think Africa is in a position where they can be leaders in terms of the just energy transition. So, but I think just to echo on the previous speaker from Old Mutual who touched on the current climate change impacts, that are being felt. The just energy transition in itself is being driven by an energy future that is really not going to be harmful to human health in terms of air pollution, but that is also going to mitigate the risks in terms of climate change themselves. So with regards to the just energy transition, the energy transition is something that is happening and it is in motion globally. We are in a position as African countries, especially South Africa, to make sure that we realize the just elements within the energy transition. So with the energy transition being a hot topic, South Africa was one of the first recipients of the Just Energy Transition, the JETP financing, where a group of IBPG partners actually made commitments to support South Africa's transition towards a cleaner energy generation future. So we are in a position where we can now aim for energy security as South Africa specifically, as well as a clean energy mix. So what with regards to the JET-IP, with the JET-IP, it really seeks to bolster investment towards renewable energy solutions, but contained within there are also mechanisms of financing such as social ownership of projects of energy generation. So we're also seeing solutions where not only is energy now being generated by a monopoly, but there's also room for other role players. So there's room for communities to generate and participate within energy generation, but there's also room for corporates to come and through solutions such as public-private partnerships where they can contribute towards this future energy mix of the country.
Oh,
Yeah.
great. But what does it include? Is it electrical vehicles? Is it green hydrogen? Is it storage? Is it a mix of everything else to make everybody happy?
So I think in the beginning it is going to be a mix of everything else. So the work that I focus on in the mitigation team of the PCC, we do mitigation pathways for the country. Our work has initially focused on the electricity or power sector, where we did modeling to understand what the country's secure energy future looks like within a low carbon economy. I'm going to use the words low carbon economy and not constrained, because we are trying to realize opportunities as we decarbonize these sectors. So with regards to renewables and the integration of renewables within the grid, it is more of a short-term solution, especially in the South African context where we are all very aware of load shedding. And so there are short-term solutions with renewables and solar PVs. And as the technology matures, we will then see an allocation in the future of more renewables. We are also seeing the role of gas within the energy mix, where gas can be used for peaking support, where it can be used for peaking support. Now, the quantum of gas allocated is often a topic for debate. And as we see a phase out of coal, there will obviously be increased, penetration of renewables into the South African grid. But we will also, there's also the debate about nuclear and small modular reactors. Small modular reactors are a technology that is emerging, similar to carbon capture and storage. So that is a more longer-term solution. So there is a very varied energy mix within South Africa's energy mix. We, as South Africa, are unique in the sense that it's hard to compare ourselves with our African counterparts that are already have renewable energy or renewable energy for energy generation, and that's what makes us unique and really hard to compare with our African counterparts.
Thank you very much. Good luck with South Africans and nuclear. Dr. Stanley Simelane, just on the gas matter, and I know, and a few of us have been reading the news over the last month about how Sasol has set the cat amongst the pigeons. But I don't want us to talk about that. I don't want to go into a specific corporate strategy. It would be unfair, except to say that just tell us how does the energy also look like, particularly for gas in Africa? I mean, what are the prospects? Is it available? Will it remain cheap? Is it a transition fuel? I mean, what is Sasol thinking? And I mean, you know you're a big player. And the people of Secunda are getting jittery about whether they'll keep the jobs.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you. Look, I want to speak my views from an African perspective rather than space side operate in on a daily basis. We need energy to drive economic development and social welfare and well-being of everybody in the African continent. And I want us to assume and agree that from a baseline perspective, we are transitioning from fossil-based economies to a low-carbon economy. And that is going to have implications. There are opportunities and challenges in that process. And if you look how South Africa has went about driving the renewable energy program, it followed a public-private partnership framework, right? That means countries in Africa seem not to have the finance to finance their own transition. And then financiers somehow will dictate the terms in terms of which technologies, where they are manufactured. Because I can tell you, in my previous life at CSIR, in some of the scholarly material that I published, it's out there, you'd realize that most of the jobs that renewables will create, they are generally temporal in nature. And it's because of the funders. They could be better, it depends. So Africa has to decide in terms of how they want to fund their decarbonization journey, and they have to decide whether technology transfer is something that would be part of the discussions moving forward. So we don't manufacture renewables. Anyone that says they manufacture renewables, they are running an assembly plant. You're displacing a coal miner with wind and solar. And the remaining jobs mainly are on O&M, operations and maintenance, mainly. So, and on the other hand, you don't have the economies of scale to justify manufacturing locally. Because if you think about the South African energy capacity, plus minus 50 gigawatts. Think about China, India, China, plus minus 1,200 gigawatts. So we are a fraction of what China is. And it makes sense for them to manufacture these technologies because of the magnitude of their power system. Therefore, if Africa wants to optimize benefits that will come with the transition process, we have to think from a regional point of view. Because if once you think from a regional point of view, then all these questions around, do you have the sufficient demand? You don't have to wait for one bid window in South Africa, etc., if we think about it from a regional point of view.
Indeed, I think there is a converging agreement around the need for stronger regional cooperation, and we'll come to the detail about that. You know, movement of goods, movement of cargo, unequal currencies, instability, wars, coups, corruption, all the things that makes us not be able to cooperate. But we'll come to that. Devon, CEO of LTM Energy, and I'm happy you are the last because your question is more about balancing decarbonization and energy security. You know, in the context of this being a sustainability conference, being about people, planet, and prosperity. I don't like the P representing profit. We could please replace it with prosperity. It's better. You still find profit in prosperity, but not the other way around. So, Devon, how can we balance this? Energy security, carbon neutral or net zero as we move towards 2050. But also because we're in a global environment, our markets are already jittery about whether we'll be closed out of global trade if we remain arrogant about our need for growth, irrespective of all other global environment and social commitments.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think we heard two previous panelist speakers mentioned, and I think Kurt didn't mince his words as well as Lee alluded to it. Load shedding is killing industry at the moment. Okay, the challenge is business continuity, survival. And there are many people that are echoing the same sentiments as what Kurt mentioned, where somebody, or one of his clients, blatantly stated that I don't care about the planet. They cared about survival. Now we have to look at those sentiments and figure out what's going on, because that's the reality for most people. Others may not say it as blatantly as that. They're very subdued, but it's survival out there. Now we have to address those issues. But if you turn the picture around, where you look and bring security of supply and decarbonization together. So picture a Venn diagram. On your right-hand side, you've got security of supply or reliability of supply. On the left-hand side, you've got decarbonization. I think you also alluded and you seem excited about innovative technologies. Now, if you bring this and think of a Venn diagram and the integration of those circles, that's where the double whammy that you can address decarbonization as well as energy security. And on top of that, paint a positive business case. And I don't want to get into the financial numbers, but if your internal rate of return is over 20% with these technologies, it's a sound business case. So where I'm alluding to with the triple P models or power purchase agreement, with energy performance contracting models, the clients don't have to spend a cent, but they can reduce the OPEX cost from day one. Tried and tested. I think you guys know these models that's out there. How do you turn that around with a dire need to meet business continuity by bringing these integration? And some of these technologies I like to mention, and you may like this. Conduit hydro, first mover advantage. First time in the history, Department of Water and Sanitation has issued a 40-year license. First time, because of the status of the country. Now, conduit hydro is basically turbines within a pipe where water flows gushing to your home. Let's take Rand Water, for example. Water gushes to your home, has to flow 24/7, and all you do is trapping the kinetic energy movement of water and harnessing it. You put turbines, and it turns it into energy. It's been done in other parts of the world. Conduit hydro, waste to energy. I was privileged to be in the COP28. Waste to energy has a sound business case, but double whammy. Sound business case plus it's getting rid of our waste. Those are innovative technologies out there that we can embrace to have the double whammy where you're addressing decarbonization as well as energy security issues and painting a positive business case. Because there are clever funding models out there. The client doesn't have to pay a cent. So innovation is happening right here. You asked a very important question. Do we just sit and wait for money? We heard about an $8.5 billion that in November, was it 2021, it was announced that they would give us. Has it been spent? Did we get it? There's so many countries involved to be donor funders. There's a complexity that arises when you have so many different countries and the application process. The idea is to not wait. We have a lot of innovation going, but we can collaborate with other countries. That's very important. I think collaboration was mentioned by what the presenter, previous presenter, which she did an excellent job from All Mutual. Collaboration is so powerful, but we can. Do not wait for an answer. We have the answers within ourselves to make it happen within the people right here.
Indeed, as long as we don't leave this conference or any other spaces saying that it is the environment and renewables that are causing load shedding. It is actually when we saw load shedding that people went to renewables. So there are not many solar roofs in South Africa today because people are buying second solar panels. This is their first purchase. So they're actually responding to the crisis and not causing it. Whether the system thought that they'll come in too earlier and they stopped other generation or commissioning is another thing. But I thought that I should stay that so that you don't leave the house people saying these environmentalists are keeping us in the dark. We found you in the dark. And then maybe a general question, and any of the panelists could decide whether they want to go first. There are global developments, and I'm happy that you're raising the question of the jet IP, the 8.5 billion, and it's actually increased now. But we've got a finance, it's 11 now, and I know that we've got a finance panel after this. Maybe they could give details. But this is happening in a global space. I mean, what does this mean for the value chains? What does EVs mean for the backyard mechanic? What does it mean for export? What does wind turbines mean for the coal mine worker that has never been a welder? His job has been to drill and dig. So what does this value chain mean? What does it mean for carbon border adjustment mechanism? Or should we just bite the bullet and say we're getting out of the multilateral environmental system? Because it's one thing to complain about it in the country, and we love multilateral for the ICJ, but we don't love multilateral for climate. We love multilateral for science cooperation, but we don't love multilateral for environment. So what does it mean? Are we saying that the climate space is the only one that's constraining us internationally? Well and good. But let me not prop you. What are the rules to play for business, for government, for civil society in making sure that we're a key global player in the global just energy transition? Stanley, Simpiwe? I know you've attended more international meetings probably than all of us here.
No. So I'll start. I'll take the advantage because I am the lady, so I will go first. I think, the transition is being driven by, of course, the multilateral nature of our country's trade. And it provides both an opportunity and a risk. So there are opportunities in terms of emerging technologies, but there's also opportunities, I guess, Blessing spoke about new energy vehicles to sustain sectors and even potentially grow sectors. So the automotive sector is at risk because of commitments made by the European countries that the imports of internal combustion engines will now need to stop from 2035. So they have now got to restructure the automotive industry locally. So there's both opportunities and there's both risks. But this also then provides an opportunity for us to localize some elements within the sector. So there's a South African Renewable Energy Master Plan document that was published by the DMRE for public comment that really looks at trying to maximize on the value chain. So the one thing about the Renewable Energy Master Plan is that it acknowledges that there are certain components, for example, relating to wind turbines, that we cannot manufacture and compete with China. But what about the value chain along, the renewable energy value chain? For example, the batteries. We can manufacture and create manufacturing hubs, and starting with areas in Mpumalanga, and maximize on the future, on this future. There's also emerging technologies like green hydrogen. Last week, I attended a conference that looked at green hydrogen production, and specifically for the shipping and trucking industry. So there are opportunities, but they also require, we are now in a period where it is niche and it requires investment now, and probably longer offtake periods than what industry is used to. But this is the time for investment. And then also, this is also a time where we have to really again, think innovatively about economic diversification, where our economies, in some instances, we're really reliant on one source, for example, coal, depending on the area. There has to be economic diversification within the various sectors, but also industry can support these economic diversification options from the onset. And I think I will stop there.
That's a mouthful. You're going to be a politician when you grow up. Value chains, what are opportunities?
Yeah, just to perhaps from clarification from the last statement you made that renewables causing load shedding. Some of the technologies I mentioned, conduit hydro, quad generation, waste to energy, are all base load. So they're not erratic like wind and solar. But coming back to a thriving green economy, I use the hat of the Vice President of Southern African Energy Efficiency Confederation. The key responsibility of that association is to make the green economy thrive. I mean, you don't have to look far around to our neighboring countries or abroad, that the green economy is actually thriving, and the more opportunities created. Of course, we have to look after the transition where the coal miners have to be redeployed to a greener economy. And I'll give you a few examples, right? Just to share something which is really, call it back home. Defunct solar panels. Defunct solar panels. There are many of them. Okay? We made them into boardroom tables. Beautiful boardroom tables. We have an opportunity, come to our offices and you'll see them, beautiful boardroom.
Comes in.
400% profit because we had an order of 15. That's not our core business. Any entrepreneurs want to partner here, here's a huge opportunity. Defunct solar panels. KDAC cylinders or gas cylinders turned into the cooler bags. Or turned into these ice cube, what do you call them? Coolers, yeah.
Yeah.
And we have recycling bins, right? So all these things are entrepreneurs that can go. We are busy working with an entrepreneur who's taking second-hand cylinders, which is geysers, right, and turning into braai stands.
Right? In the last 2 minutes, gentlemen, as you speak about the value chain, I mean, what about funding? Briefly, I mean, everybody is saying we don't have the money, and I know that, Des, you are very passionate about the issue about where to fund. But Stanley, before I give to Stan, and then each one of you 30 seconds to just say thank you. I mean, will the seed funding come?
Thanks. Look, there's one point I feel I need to say.
Great.
There is a risk from the African reserves point of view. Remember, as you're going to lose your markets because of carbon intensity products outside the African continent, you'll also be losing your rand dollar reserves that you would have as you export markets. And Africa has to think about how they're going to manage that risk. I'll end there.
Thanks. So it's not about money that we get. It's also about securing the money that is already within our borders and using it effectively. Because we are not a very poor. I mean, I know that we are a very rich continent. Just look at you. You don't look poor. There's millions of poverty in our country. But I think that we don't have poverty of intelligence, poverty of creativity, and the energy to unleash the energy we need to drive Africa's economic development. Last words. Let's start with you. What next? Kuawadis. Do we continue to talk? Do we push government to do something? Do we build stronger partnerships? Do we open up our books? Do we become more transparent? But we have got a just transition that's unfolding just in front of us. What next? In Africa and in our own country.
I think it was well summed up by the presentation done by All Mutual. What do you do when you go back to your office? My belief is lead by example, right? And make the change that is so needed in the world right now, and to protect our planet. I think we must be active. We're right now looking at the world to help us out, but let's take the leadership and embrace innovation and explore and how we can work together. With more collaboration, it is so important to collaborate with our neighbors and not about the first world countries only. I'd like to see more of that.
Simpiwe Tumamina, Presidential Climate Commission.
Tumamina.
So I think there's actually a role for the local asset managers to invest in and drive the transition in the various sectors, because if it's local funding, then the interests aren't based on the forex interest rates. I also think that with regards to our regional connectivity, there's a role for us to collaborate with regards to the minerals that are going to be required in the future. So minerals like cobalt and copper, most of them sit in the SADC region in areas like the DRC. South Africa can position itself as, I guess, a beneficiation and export hub, because we do have the infrastructure in terms of port and some of the critical pipelines. So there's room for further collaboration in the SADC region, but also local asset managers, I think, need to also, define the agenda and drive the transition.
Thank you very much. Des Ivalelento.
I came across a definition of money. money is an idea backed by confidence. Okay? Now, to get funding for a just energy transition, you need confidence behind that transition. What will raise the confidence is a just energy transition that provides energy security. I think we can all agree with it as South Africans, as a number one. Access to affordable energy, which is number two. Environmental sustainability, in number three. And then employment. We need to start creating jobs with our just energy transition. And number one, we need to ensure energy security. We don't have that yet at the moment. Okay? And a good example of a just energy transition would be repurposing our retired coal fleet with small modular reactors and gas, if it's available. And that would be a proper just energy transition that ticks off all the boxes that I've just mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you to my panel and thank you to the audience. I think the jury is still out on whether just energy transition would work or not, but there is opportunity. I think all we've got to say to ourselves is that let us snatch the victory out of the jaws of defeat. Thank you very much. And we go into the next session. Thank you very much, Carol.
Job very well done by Blessing. Thank you so much. And congratulations. Thank you to his panelists as well. Des was talking about money. Let's discuss that a little bit more, talking about trade and business, and of course, the topic of sustainability. Our next discussion will delve into innovative sustainability policies to promote a conducive environment to operate. Please welcome the panelists to stage now. Head of Internal Democracy at Rise Mzansi and member of the National Leadership Collective, Boitumelo Mpakanyane is here with us today. We're also joined by Kwezikazi Vinful, Municipal and Project Finance Manager, South African Presidential Climate Commission. Boitumelo, come up. You've got a mic. Yes. And let's also welcome Dr. Sibongile Mazibuko, Deputy Director, Green Economy, the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition up here. All right, welcome to my panelists. Boitumelo, we're going to kick off with you and just talk about policies. How is it that policies can shape trade and business?
Thank you so much. I think they obviously have a massive impact, but I think we need to start by being very, very honest about the context in which businesses have to operate in South Africa's economy. In 2022 at the World Economic Forum, in Davos, the phrase polycrisis was coined, and we exist in the polycrisis. We have experienced the decay of just about every single meaningful public institution except SARS. We have seen incredible growth in energy insecurity that has killed people and businesses. We have seen the inability to import goods, move goods across the country, which has completely hiked the cost of living, the cost of doing business in South Africa. So I think we need to first start by being very, very honest and mindful about the context in which businesses have to function in South Africa. The implication, however, is polycrises give rise to poly opportunities, and I think the JET IP is an example of a poly opportunity. it presents incredible opportunities for us to activate new green industries and bring and effectively change the face of South Africa's economy. But our crisis isn't just a policy issue. We also are plagued by a policy management issue, one, but secondly, a massive implementation gap that informs our inability to effectively to give life to South African policy. And I think, you know, we need to be mindful about the policy shortfalls in the JETIP itself, in the sense that it exists to what it says on the box is that the just transition will leave nobody behind. Right, that's what it says on the box. But ultimately, there are several policy shortfalls in the JET that kind of look like they might leave communities behind. We don't have a significant enough focus on skills development. I think of the total 97 billion required, 1% is allocated for skills development, which bodes horrible prospects for the coal-based for communities that exist around coal power stations that will ultimately be repurposed for pursuing the just transition. We're also a little bit alarmed at the reality and the financing model, with the big focus on debt financing and not enough of a focus on grant financing. You know, there's a phrase in economics that talks about the first sin in economics being having a big aspect of dollar denominated. What has benefited us as South Africa can you hear me?
Yeah.
Has benefited us as South Africa for a very long time is that a lot of our debt is denominated in rands, right? I think about 10 to 15% of our debt is in dollars, which means that, you know, when we don't have to deal with the currency fluctuation complexities that other emerging economies have to deal with. I mean, if you look at Mexico and Argentina, on every 10 years, they have this exchange crisis that effectively collapses their economy. But we're now talking about lending 97 billion rand from European capital markets. Has really pretty frightening consequences for the fiscal cliff that we're looking like we might be heading off of. So there's a few policy gaps that I think we need to be able to plug, but it's not just a policy issue. It's also a reality that we don't have, that we've lost the levers that we used to have to be able to make strategic infrastructure investments to kickstart our economy. We spent billion rand on 2 power stations that were supposed to cost 150 billion rand that still don't work today. And as a consequence, we have load shedding that has killed people and businesses. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Sibongile, yep. Policies, they can be very key in terms of enhancing trade relations, but how have we seen this playing itself out locally?
We have seen this from the perspective of the DTI, because we have actually very much involved with the African Continental Free Trade Arrangement or arena. In that, we see it very key because we are looking at the continent as having about 3.1 trillion in that is a single market of the African continent. And then also, from our side, we also looked at what we call under the AFCTA, the GTI. I know it sounds like it's a car, it's not. It's the guided traded initiative, whereby we say to member countries, they must actually input into the products that they want to put in there for trading. So we're looking at those things from that particular perspective. So from the South African perspective, we are also looking at the issues of around about the REP. So wherein countries are actually bidding towards these renewable energies. We're now in bid stage number 7, and we're seeing wind coming back to the fore, and this is what is currently happening from the side. And then we also, from using the AFCTA, we were participating in road shows, because those are key, because when you are saying to a layman, there is this AFCTA, what is it? Yeah. Let us put it out there for people to understand what it means and how would it translate for goods and services for this country, for this continent, and how we need to compete globally.
Can you talk to us about, Kwezga's, where it is that we could improve our policies in order to create a more enabling environment for trade and for business?
Thank you for that question, Carol, and good afternoon or morning to the audience. So I had plans to talk about, the Constitution and how it lays the basis for socioeconomic rights and everything. But I think after the last or the previous panel, I think there's been really a pressing need to talk about the Just Energy Transition Investment Plan. I think it's been a point of contention because even with this panel, it's been mentioned a couple of times, and I feel sort of obligated to sort of shed a bit of light because I think there are a bit of there is a bit of a misconception around what it is, what it plans to do, what it is not. And what I'd like to say is that first and foremost, the JET-IP is not an investment plan. It is not an investment plan that says that these are the monies that we're going to get from international donors, from international capital markets and such. What the JET-IP seeks to do, or seeked to do, was that it seeked to identify what sectors that exist within South Africa can we, from a policy point of view, use as levers as we are transitioning into the green economy or the low carbon economy. And what was mapped out is really the catalytic policy maneuvers that needed to be done for us to ensure that as we're transitioning to net zero by 2050, at least in the short term, we do have clear targets of what needs to be done for us to get to that point. And we keep talking about, I know there's the question around the monies that are coming from the international donors, the JET-P of initially $8.5 billion and now $11.6 billion. And I think another thing that we need to just understand there is that even with that, the policymakers within the country had a determination of what needed to be done. There was an offer that came, but what happened subsequent to that was that the policymakers then went back and said, but this is not sufficient. And I do want to also speak about a paper that we released last year as the Presidential Climate Commission that actually sought to map out climate finance flows into the country. And perhaps this could give people a bit of comfort, with this whole question around international donors, a transition that is country-owned and country-led. And what we found with that paper is that on average, between 2019 and 2021, more than 80% of the climate finance flows that were flowing in South Africa were actually from domestic markets. So I don't think that we need to look at this just transition as though this is something that we need grant funding for. South Africa is actually a very capable financial market. I think we've shown quite significantly the power that we have in actually implementing this just transition as it is, as a country, and keep it country-owned and country-led. And I think what we really want to talk about and start talking about is how do we get ourselves to a point where, as policymakers, we're actually creating an enabling environment for the collaboration to take place between business and other regions, like what we've spoken about the African Trade Agreement. How do we make sure that at the very fundamental point of policy in South Africa, we are giving heavy signals to the business environment and other trading partners to say that South Africa is ready for this transition. We want it to be country-owned and we want it to be country-led.
Mm-hmm. Okay. We want you all to, round of applause. We also want you guys to become a part of this discussion. So towards the end, we'll open up to the floor to get one or two comments on this very topic, or even some questions very shortly. There is a microphone in the audience. Is there a roving mic? So is there a roving mic now? Okay, yeah. So a little bit later on, we'll open it up to the floor as well. Boitumelo, let me go back to you here and talk about policies that South Africa has. What policies does South Africa have in order to create that enabling environment for trade and business in the country?
Absolutely. So we've spoken about the Continental Free Trade Area, which has the ability to unlock incredible potential from a regional trade perspective, and I think even from a kind of geopolitical perspective, place Africa at the forefront of regional geopolitics. So it's definitely something that the organization I come from is in massive support of. If anything, I think we need to be strengthening these platforms for multilateralism and the like. I think in addition to that, I think the JET IP is one that we're particularly excited about from an economic development perspective. But ultimately, like I said before, it will fundamentally depend on our ability to effectively implement it. Right? I think what we hear quite often in the political space is that South Africa's issues aren't necessarily just policy. There's an implementation gap that we need to account for, and there are a lot of things that we need to do in terms of being able to free up, create space and freedom for incredible public servants like I have to my right to be able to exist in a depoliticized environment, to be able to do their jobs and effectively implement policy. But we'll never be able to do that until we are able to capacitate the public administration in a way that allows us to one, depoliticize the public administration, but secondly, professionalize it. Because I think what we're realizing in our political journey as Rise Mzansi is that the issues that South Africans have to contend with on a daily basis are fundamentally interlinked. We can't treat economic issues as purely economic issues. We can't treat public safety issues as purely public safety issues. You know, in building our manifesto, we went to over 120 towns and cities, and what people in Mqanduli will say to you is, I'm scared to start a business because of the safety implications, right? So when we talk about policy and when we talk about policy creating an enabling environment, we need to be talking about a lot more than just high-level policy around, NDPs and Vision 2050s and all of these things. We need to be talking about the things that create conducive environments for people to be able to make meaningful investments in their own communities. When we talk about leveraging foreign direct investment and all of these things, all of those things are great, right? People we are a small but open economy that exists in a global stage, and we must continue to be that. But we also need to incentivize South Africans to be able to make investments in their own communities. And at the moment, the risks are too high, and it's simply too unsafe. But I think ultimately, like I said, we need an effective public administration, an effective public service that is depoliticized and has the ability to create value for South Africans. We need energy security. We need to fix SOEs like Transnet. I think, economists. I heard an economist talking about how between Eskom's decay and Transnet's decay, as well as Prasa over the past 15 years, those three SOEs cost us about 3% in GDP growth per annum. So we want to be we're talking about economic growth and job creation in this economy that grows at 1% per annum, 1% year on year. And until we can get to a point where we can fix these fundamentally critical institutions of the state, we're going to have a very, very limited capacity to implement any shiny policy interventions. What we have to contend with as South Africans is a leadership crisis, and until we deal with that, we will never be able to leverage the talents that we have in the public administration. And there are exceptionally talented people in the public administration, but we need to be able to make sure that at a political leadership and governance level, we clean up quite a few things there. Thank you.
Yeah. Sibongile, Khwezikazi, I saw you guys both nodding as you're listening to Ubuitumelo. You can add your thoughts and also tell us how it is that we will and can or should adapt our policies to create an environment that is more conducive to business prosperity.
I'll start with the last question, because we need to be very consistent with our policies, because the other thing that we are having right now is not so much about how beautiful the policy has been written, it's how much of it has been implemented out there. Can the people actually resonate with that kind of policy that you are actually indicating that it's there? You know, for example, right now, a lot of people don't understand that the AfCFTA, we have 55 member countries in the African continent with Eritrea. Usually they say 54, it's 55 with Eritrea. Then the 47, they've actually deposited into the African Free Trade Area using an instrument of ratification. So we are moving in there, right? So the space is there's a willpower a little bit from countries. But from the side of countries saying that these are our products that we want to put out there for the continent, so that when the continent trades amongst itself, we are having only 8. So we need more countries to come in. So you have your Tunisia, you'll have Morocco, you'll have Egypt, but we still need countries to come to the fore and say, okay, this is what we're going to trade, and why are we trading in that? For example, now, from the previous speakers, they were actually speaking about the EV. A lot of people don't understand that there's an EV white paper that has been signed. And these vehicles are going to come into the continent, and we still have not, we are not ready as a continent. So there's an EV white paper that has been signed, and we are attending all these EV conferences, and yet people don't understand what do you mean when you say we are having an EV. Where are we going to get the batteries for those EVs? The batteries are coming from here. You're gonna have to go to the DRC. You're gonna go to Zimbabwe. You're gonna go to Madagascar. Those are the countries that you're going to. So that is why we need trade cooperation, not just trade cooperation, but we need the necessary investment that will need to happen in this country. And then while we are doing that, we're also roping in the young, the smaller countries to say that let them not feel smaller, because we'll have the bigger economy swallowing up the smaller countries. So that's where we are.
Thank you. Thank you to the panelists. So I just really want to just emphasize this idea of, systems and existing within a context of, the region in Africa, and the importance of realizing the interconnectedness of these different countries. So when we look at something like sustainability, the just energy transition, the thing about things like climate change is that they don't recognize borders. So for climate change, it's not going to say, okay, I'm only going to, cause this much havoc here, but these guys, because they are a bit, it doesn't work like that. There are no borders. So we need to actually understand the context that we live in. Yes, we are this major, player within Africa, but also, yes, we are cognizant of the fact that we are bound by rules of being global citizens as a country and everything, but the understanding of our context as a country, understanding that we are a country that is battling with the triple challenges of poverty, unemployment, inequality, understanding that we still have autonomy, even though, we are from the global south and we are impacted by stuff that has been done by the global north, I think is going to give us, some sort of agency. It gives us the chance to actually determine what happens, what do we do next. And this understanding of, the regional context is very important. And perhaps these are the platforms that we need to start, questioning ourselves on. How do we create a social impact, social compact between government and business? Because where is the disconnect? If government and the policymakers are saying, yes, we're creating all these lovely policies that are going to facilitate trade between countries in Africa, but business is not actually understanding where do they plug in, where do they fit in, and how do they leverage those policies, then I feel like these are the conversations that we need to start interrogating ourselves. That are we perhaps working in silos as a society? If we are working in silos, that means that we can't leverage the power of social compacts, the power of understanding that what you do affects me too, and what I do affects you too, and therefore we need to come together for the greater societal good. So I just, let me just stop there, Carol. Thanks.
Okay, no worries. Would you like to lend your voice to the discussion? Is there anyone in the room that would like to add something or even ask a question at this juncture? Just raise a hand. All righty. Boitumelo, what processes, right? What tools, what practices should we be tapping into for this innovative policy design?
So I think the innovation needs to be the innovation has to exist at an implementation level, at least for me. We talk a lot about the ability for the Jet IP to create opportunities in communities where communities around power stations like Komati that are due to be repurposed for the just transition. But ultimately, and this perhaps maybe speaks to the skills development point I made earlier, until we get to a point where we have made significant enough investment and made a real policy commitment to be able to make sure that at the point where we do start this journey of decommissioning coal-fired power stations, until we get to the point where we have made actual interventions to make sure that the communities that exist around these power stations are equipped to lead the transition, then I think our ability to fully extract the most amount of value out of the Jet IP is going to be significantly diminished. I think another system that has the potential to allow us to extract very real value is public procurement, right? Public procurement in South Africa has been an enabling force to create many successful black and colored and public people of color owned businesses. Obviously, it has its issues. But when you start to explore solutions around cleaning up public procurement, digitizing core aspects of public procurement to make sure that the entire supply chain and the value chain that we want to exist around these new ideas and these new industries, if we have the ability to clean up those aspects, then there's immense potential for us to change the face of our economy, to move away from being the world's most unequal economy and to create very real value for communities that exist and have the potential to produce the goods and services that a just transition, energy-intensive economy is going to require from us. So we know that we already know and have a sense of the kind of industries that are going to be bolstered by our move from a just transition perspective. We know that it's going to mean a boom for the steel and aluminium industry. We know that it's going to mean a boom for various industries across the board. We need to be very mindful now about making those investments now in those industries, in those communities. But from a systems perspective, it's going to require that we clean up a lot of aspects of how the state interfaces with business, and specifically cleaning up public procurement and using public procurement for the purpose that it was intended, to allow the state to procure from businesses, but to place the state at the forefront of catalyzing the growth of new businesses, and specifically businesses owned by black people and people of color.
Yeah. Do we have any examples here in the room of forward-thinking strategies that have catalyzed economic growth? Are there any examples that you can give us? Yeah. Don't be shy. You can raise a hand. Okay. We've got at the back. Wait a minute. Please give Claire your mic here.
Going?
Right at the back.
Hi everybody, my name is Sarah Motwani Sibetula from Tepiso Branding Solutions. So in our business, we are not just a typical branding solutions business. So we are on a mission to empower our clients to embrace ESG goals through the selection of our conscientious branding solutions. So that's just our strategy from SMME perspective. So if there's any corporates in the house that would like to partner with us, then I'm here. Thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else?
Nope.
Yep. Yeah, we've got right at the back, Claire. Yeah.
Raise your hand. Where am I going?
Did you raise your hand, sir? At the back. Yes, yes. Claire, there we go.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen. My name is George. I am an owner of an SME called Student Movers. So as student movers, towards a comment of economic growth, we've had the privilege of working with Imagined Earth. Imagined Earth is a reverse vending machine company. It supplies these machines which recycle waste and then get taken for sorting. So what's happened with us is, as a small moving company, we've benefited from the partnership that we have with Imagined Earth, where we are able to have cash flow outside of the moving aspect of our business, where we maintain and sort of service these machines in the whole of Gauteng. That has become quite a very, it's been very good towards our business, looking at it in terms of what you're trying to say. So right now I'm here as a moving company, but however, we are part of something bigger than where we are currently positioned with. It really has created a large opportunity for us in this sustainability sort of topic that we're talking about.
Thank you so much. Yep. Yeah. Okay, we've got a question up front, Claire. Go there and then there. Just have our last two questions.
Okay. Who's raised their hand?
Yeah.
There you go. Sandile.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Sandile Chabalala. I've got a question for all the panelists, and I think it's something that I kind of saw happening on stage, but I'd like to know how they can foster everyone in the room to be charged around the issue of collaboration and partnership. So I think a lot of the time in South Africa, we see that we do a lot of things in silos, especially on issues around sustainability and impact, which fundamentally affect people's lives directly. So we're not necessarily dealing with spreadsheets or balance sheets, but we're dealing with people and the issues around socioeconomic well-being of people. I'd just like to know, how do the panelists see each other or see everyone in the room working towards a common purpose, and how do we drive policies? Because policies essentially are meant to be geared towards directing where resources should go, right? But then no single entity or no single person can achieve the outcome of a policy with just by themselves. You need collaboration, that's why companies, source, because they need suppliers in order to achieve a certain goal, right? So I'd just like to know, how do you fundamentally strengthen the ecosystem of sustainability in this country by actually enabling policy to be much more simpler, maybe? But I'd just like to hear, how do you see collaboration and partnerships happening? Thank you.
Lovely question. I did want to close on the issue of collaboration, because I think, coming out of the conversation that we've had and just observing other panels as well, I think for me, it is really such a pressing point that there is a need for collaboration in this country. I think if you look at any successful country in the world, there is no government that has been able to advance a country on its own. There are no businesses that are able to advance a country on their own, as well as society. We're all part of, this ecosystem, and for it to work, we need to realize what each of our roles is and basically pursue it to the best of our ability. And this also goes back to the point I made around, social compacting, really understanding where you are within the ecosystem, doing what you can, doing it well where you are, and making sure that you are collaborating with the people around you within that ecosystem. We do speak about, in the Just Transition Framework, we speak very heavily on the 3 types of justices that underpin just transition. And one of those justices is procedural justice. And when we talk about procedural justice, really what we're saying is, yes, it's so nice to say, don't leave people behind, but what does that mean in terms of stakeholder engagement? What does that mean in terms of identifying who the different social partners are when you're crafting policy and making sure that at each and every point of that policy development, you're engaging with those social partners. So this is something that we really, really try to do as the Presidential Climate Commission. And this is something that we're trying to bring in other departments as well and say that, listen, when you are developing policies, this is how you bring people along. This is how you ensure that they are thoroughly engaged and they are thoroughly a part of this development. And I think my colleagues would like to add on.
I think also from your end, Mr. Shabala, you were saying that you wanted easier access to these policies. From the we were working with the presidency. There's an Operation Pakisa waste stream, right? Whereby we identify companies that want to work with the presidency, and then we're looking at different waste streams, and then the people will actually have to come in and just make a pitch, because a lot of companies are nowadays that you have to pitch your business, right? Let your voice be heard. That is where we are at this point in time. And then we are also working with the Department of Environmental Affairs, wherein we are actually reviving the waste sector policy. So we want it to be signed, especially on the renewable tires under the Waste Bureau. So you have to get into these spaces, find yourself in these little spaces, and it's just raising your hand and say, this is who I am, this is what my business is about, and then so that somebody else sitting in here can actually like fund your business.
Thank you. I know my job is supposed to be to disagree with people who work in public sector institutions, but in this instance, I don't. I think what I am going to kind of highlight is the kind of partnerships that we are and multilateral arrangements and agreements that we are involved in as a country, and that I think are important. We obviously are a member of BRICS. We are a member of the African Continental Free Trade Area. But I think BRICS is interesting in the sense that, you know, China is the biggest manufacturer of beneficiated goods on the planet, right? What we are trying to the value that we are trying to extract out of the just transition is to grow our manufacturing sector and our potential to beneficiate goods. If we don't start navigating trading blocks like BRICS as trading blocks and stay out of weird geopolitical squabbles that exist inside that trading block, we'll never be able to extract the kind of value that we need to as a country out of forums like that. So I think, just to kind of take a different angle on the question, I think the kind of strategic partnerships that we should be pursuing as a country at the diplomatic and an international level are specifically those that align with our foreign policy interests, that align with our domestic interests of being able to grow our economy, being able to grow strategic sectors of our economy, and be able to transition to a decarbonized economy, but one that has incredible potential to beneficiate the raw materials that are abundant in our soil. But yeah, just different take from me. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we've run out of time, but there was one more common question. Yes, Claire?
Is it for? Over here.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Makhosazane Lutsuli. I run a company called Allegro Enterprises. I am an accountant by profession, but I'm actually an entrepreneur, having started this business. And our business works in South and East Africa. And my question is really around actually the title of this panel discussion, which is about innovative sustainability policies. And really around that innovation side of things. What is the multiplicity of voices that sit at the table when policies are set? Because I think from my own lived experience, you know, we can talk about like an AFCFTA, for instance, which is not a new policy, but to actually now say, let's trade, let's actually bring goods from Ethiopia, from Rwanda into South Africa. There's so many issues, right? How do the goods get here? So we're talking about infrastructure. I need to talk to a supplier in that country. There's, you know, connectivity issues. There's currency issues as well. So there's a lot of policy that's set, but when you are doing business, it's actually a different game. And I'm just asking, where are the gaps in the innovation around how the policies are set, and who actually sets those policies, and what is that lived experience to really know? Because if we're talking about innovation, we're talking about problem solving. How do you solve a problem that you don't really know firsthand? So I'm just trying to see, how do we link those things? What's your view around that? Thank you.
Would like to, yeah?
Sure. So the gaps are definitely self-evident. I think the gaps exist in the implementation gap that I spoke about earlier, in the sense that the people who have to contend with having to operate businesses in these contexts are the people who have to deal with the consequences of policy, but don't have a seat at policy-making tables. And I think it speaks to the importance of taking communities, taking key stakeholders along for the ride in creating policies that ultimately bind and inform the nature of the contexts that we exist in. So I think ultimately the answer exists in collaboration. If there's going to be any innovation to be done, we need to kind of streamline the ability for key stakeholders to be able to make strategic inputs into policy as well as into implementation plans.
And also, Makosazana, from the ground up and to the ground down, the importance of using our embassies in these various countries, it's going to come in handy because they reside there to give you the necessary advice, because we have economic attaches in various countries for South Africa in those various countries. So you can use that. And don't just go there alone and just hope that you will swim and then find yourself a commercial lawyer. But I know with small, medium enterprises, it's a difficult terrain, right? So you allow those people at those embassies, they are getting paid for that. That is your taxpayers' money. So you have a right to go to the embassy and say, I want to start a business in Ghana. And you know how difficult it can be. Or I want to start a business in Nigeria. So who do I talk to? So they need to do the research, a little bit of research for you. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your input as well. A big round of applause for the panelists navigating this topic. Great job. Thank you guys so much. Thank you. And now let's talk about navigating tomorrow's business landscape. Our next case study will be looking at the crucial connection between future business and sustainability. Please welcome to stage Group Sustainability Executive at the Spar Group Limited, Kevin O'Brien.
Good afternoon, everyone. I think I might just take a step back from some very highly charged discussions today and at a level that is, and the detail of it, which is obviously really, really important. So Simon Sinek, I just want to start with a quote from him where he says, "True strength lies in the courage to admit our weaknesses." So the crucial connection between So it's a great privilege, for SPAR to be involved with this conference, so thank you very much, and for me to have an opportunity to present to you today. The crucial connection between future business and sustainability is indeed a weighty topic. Weighty if it's taken seriously by business, and insignificant if flirted with by business. Business, civil society, and government are key players in the future of society. Collaboration between these three players is critical to the sustainability of our environment and our society. Collaboration is such an easy word to say. Many of us use it. However, it is one of the most difficult processes to engage in. Difficult because business, society, and government do not trust each other. Without mutual respect and trust, there can be no meaningful collaboration. And therefore, there can be no meaningful future for society. I'm going to be using SPAR as my case study, and the slides that I will show you contain examples of what SPAR is doing under the heading of ESG. I do not intend to talk about the detail on the slides. However, I will talk about the critical thinking that is needed to activate change in business to ensure a sustainable future for business. The biggest shift of for an operationally focused business is to broaden its thinking and to reevaluate its purpose. Sorry, I was going to go back there. To evaluate its purpose. Purpose-driven organizations are more strategically focused, and sustainability thinking is a strategic thought. Similarly, culture is an important ingredient in driving sustainable change. ESG factors, which make up the suite of monitoring of sustainability thinking in business, cannot be pursued in a silo called ESG. Sustainability thinking needs to become embedded in the business so that business changes the way it does business. This is why culture is so very important. Professor Mervyn King, who we all know, the architect of corporate governance in South Africa, has said on numerous occasions that many people believe that shareholders own the company. They do not. They own shares in the company. A company is a juristic person and cannot think for itself. Therefore, the board and the management of a company have a duty of care over that company. The duty of care should be exercised in a way that ensures that the company delivers on its purpose for the benefit of all its stakeholders. The shareholder supremacy model stands in the way of a company delivering on its purpose, unless its purpose is solely to make shareholders rich. The value of sustainability thinking is found in delivering on this duty of care via collaboration, even with competitors. The issues that face our society are often too big and complex to resolve on our own. Hence the need for meaningful collaboration that results in the creation of value in the system and an improvement in the entire system. Addressing these issues should not be a competitive matter. It should be driven by value creation and not value extraction. The S element of ESG provides the soul that sustainable thinking needs to keep itself real and focused. Diversity, equity, and inclusion are fundamental to a strong S. Social justice provides business with the opportunity to create value by allowing all people to be part of setting the agenda in business. Understanding people's differences is frankly not good enough. We need to respect people's differences before we are able to move away from a very linear view of business and the world and embrace a systems view of the world, where the challenge is to improve the system, thereby creating value for all. SPAR's rural hub farming business is an example of an attempt to develop a sustainable business that understanding that its sustainability lies in system improvement. The following are key examples of this thinking in the rural hub business. It's not a CSI project. And in my personal opinion, CSI is merely guilt money of the rich for the poor. And no brand or collection of brands has enough money to solve the issues facing our society. Secondly, it has a purpose. This business has a purpose, which is to create sustainable and inclusive agricultural systems in Southern Africa. Thirdly, SPAR guarantees a price to the farmer. Fourthly, SPAR does not only sell the product to SPAR stores, it sells it to the market and, yes, to the opposition. And fifthly, grant funding is phased out of a business model. These models can't survive on grant funding, or shouldn't survive on grant funding. Period poverty, mental wellness, dignity, gender-based violence, environment, and economic inequality provide an interesting and challenging mix of big societal issues to address. Gender-based violence is a pandemic, and it interests me as to why we are not dealing with this pandemic in the same way as we dealt with COVID. And that's in terms of the Disaster Management Act and the implementation of numerous protocols to keep people safe in society and in the workplace. Addressing period poverty, mental wellness, and gender-based violence should not be a competition as to who's doing the most. The issues are far too big to address on our own. This is an opportunity for meaningful and impactful collaboration between business, government, and society. This is inclusive of collaboration between competitors. As I've said before, it should not be seen as a competition to address big societal issues. The work SPAR has done in partnering with Leafline to provide market access to this incredible reusable sanitary pad made from pineapple fibers is an example of the collaboration that is needed to make an impact. Scaling up this business and other businesses should be seen as an opportunity to create value and contribute meaningfully to systems change. And incidentally, SPAR does not intend to co-brand this product. Governance and compliance provide a further opportunity for collaboration within the system we operate in. Governance and compliance that is considered a tick box exercise is dangerous for the long-term sustainability of business. Ethical, transparent, and good citizenship needs to become part of the culture of business. When you dig beneath what is being said, you should find the purpose behind what is being done. A purpose is not opportunistic or simply good dinner time and conference talk. It lies at the very core of every decision that a business makes. SPAR's Food Safety Small Supplier Development Program is available for any small-scale supplier that meets the requirements of participation. These small suppliers do not only have to be supplying independent SPAR stores to qualify. Any supplier can become involved. The purpose behind this is to ensure that everyone's human right to safe food is being addressed. The environment of safe food is highly regulated and costly. SPAR has collaborated with service providers to provide reduced rates for small suppliers to reach compliance. And out of interest, there are 3 suppliers we've gone through our food safety supplier development program who are now within an opposition supply chain. And that's okay. They don't supply us. Carbon net zero by 2050. We've heard a lot this morning. Conversion to renewable energy sources, biodiversity protection, water protection, reduction of food waste, plastic removal, recycling, circular economy, and other environmental commitments are spoken about regularly. But what are the chances of us really meeting the commitments we have made in this regard? Once again, for a single business to believe that it will be able to meet the targets they set while operating on their own are living in a dream world. Reducing our impact on the environment is once again not a competitive thing. It should be something that we all collaborate on to ensure that our country and the world can meet the targets. SPAR becoming net zero by 2050 on its own is useless to the survival of our society and our planet. SPAR, or any brand for that matter, is not the world, no matter how important or powerful we might think we are. Furthermore, being driven by science-based targets in South African business without considering the societal importance of a just transition will once again be an unmitigated failure for society, because we would have once again transitioned out of a crisis and left more people behind. A just transition approach to reducing our impact on the environment is the place where value creation starts. Transitioning towards a low-carbon economy creates the opportunity for jobs to be created that we have not ever contemplated before. In conclusion, I'd like to reflect a little on the challenges that face all of us as we strive to make the connection between future business and sustainability. Excuse me for a moment, please. The biggest challenge lies in the appetite we have as a business and as a society for the economic system change that is needed to tackle the exceptionally challenging task of a future-fit society and a sustainable business. The problems we face in society, government, and business are tied up in a legacy of entitlement, power, self-serving leadership, and a lack of respect for each other and our planet. This has manifested itself in deep divisions in our society based on financial, racial, gender, religious, geographical, spatial, and other bases. Transitioning as a business is as significant as transitioning as a society and transitioning as a government. What is our collective purpose? What are our collective values? And importantly, are we prepared to enter discussions without a preconceived idea of what we want out of them? Or are we prepared to enter discussions with an open mind to the outcome? In this way, we truly live by the values that are needed to unlock all the potential in our business, our society, and government, and thereby transition into a world where everyone lives well. Leading for a sustainable future calls for leaders who are guided by their personal purpose, values, and ethics to better society, and who can use their principles to build purposeful organizations that share this vision and are geared towards its realization. Leading in this way involves having the courage, the confidence, and resilience to engage in new ways of thinking, exploring new strategies and approaches, to driving change and remaining committed in the face of challenges and failures. These types of leaders can set aside their egos and empower collaborative approaches to change by listening with empathy, connecting with others through open communication, and creating opportunities for diverse perspectives to continue to contribute meaningfully to change efforts. They are able to recognize that no individual alone can drive change on complex societal issues. As such, change requires collective solutions that reflect a nuanced understanding of the interconnectedness between humans and the environment. I'd like to leave you with an example that will hopefully explain the significant challenges that we have when it comes to understanding the crucial connection between future business and sustainability. SPAR is obviously in the food business and sells food to independent retailers who on-sell to the consumer. As part of store growth plans, consideration is given to new areas where stores can be opened. Consideration is given to informal areas. I'm not too sure who decided what is formal and informal, but I'll go with informal just for this reflection. A decision is then made to build a store in this informal area based on an analysis of the income spent in the area, and of course, there is the motivation that the store will provide employment for communities around the store, and it will be a place where consumers in the area will be able to shop and be proud of. However, what is not considered is the impact this will have on economic activity that has been going on in that area and on the very piece of ground where the store will be for many years, and that economic activity has provided families with the income to build their lives. The economic activity has stayed in the community. The erection of the new store will merely extract value from that area, not create value. We need to alter our approach in areas like this. We need to understand the system that is operating in these areas and then collaborate on on how we are able to be part of improving that system. By extracting value, we are the only significant beneficiaries of that new store, and we have possibly destroyed lives in the process. So at SPAR, we try our very best to be committed to meaningful, constructive, and transparent collaboration with all parties, as we know that we are not able to remain a sustainable business in South Africa if we don't. Thank you very much.
Really enjoyed that. Kevin, thank you so much. And a big thanks as well to the SPAR Group Limited for that particular address. Really just showing us how it is that this company is aligning its strategies with broader societal and environmental goals. And now let's hear from another case study, this time around talking about forging sustainable futures and community collaboration in mine restoration and beyond. Please welcome to stage the CEO and founder of OMR Solutions, Robin Sally Mellett.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. So I'm going to walk around with a little bottle top, and I want you to remember this because it's really important later. First of all, I have really bad ADHD, so I'm going to walk, if you don't mind. I'd really like to say thank you to all of the Topco staff, everyone in the background. We do see the finer details. My team are very detail-orientated, and right through the day, they've picked up these really cute little things. So we'd really like to say thank you very much. Then I would like to say thank you to my team who are sitting over there. We're a small company called OMI Solutions. So we're a team of environmental consultants and agricultural engineers. We have experience in 25 countries and 42 employees, growing. There's going to be more next month. We have only been around for 5 years. And I want to take you on our journey. I want to show you what we actually do. So our name is OMI Solutions, Powerful Solutions, Gentle Delivery. Powerful Solutions, you don't really need to explain that, but gentle delivery is in our ethos. Our booth is right at the end out in the foyer, and you'll see we focused a lot on pollinators and the smaller insects, almost those creatures that have been forgotten. So we focused on vegetation or restoration of vegetation. But gentle delivery for us goes one more step further. To achieve the 2050, 2030 targets, it's really important for us to consider well-being of people. And we've worked right through Africa, and there's one thing that remains the same in every single country. I want to first introduce you to some of our heroes in Africa. On the left, in the very bright orange boykie jacket, is Christian. Christian only speaks French. I don't speak French. And if I do try speak French, I sound like Joey from Friends. So it is impossible. Christian does know his plants in Latin. So we communicate using Latin words. He is able to tell me just by walking through the vegetation where there's cobalt and copper in the soil. So he can basically tell geologists where to mine. His research is incredible, and he is incredibly humble. Next, in the yellow safety vest, is Ben. Ben is also Congolese, speaks really, really good English, and wherever we go in the DRC, he comes with. Ben is amazing because he always drags me out of the community and back into the bush because I get stuck with the children in the community. Then we have Eric. Eric, in this picture, we're actually in a woodland, kind of on the periphery of a secondary woodland and a primary woodland. And we're looking at seeds. So we're collecting seeds to propagate, to prepare for re-establishment. So when I come back to South Africa, a lot of people think, okay, this is what I do. I hang out in the bush. And I love it, and I do hang out in the bush. But we actually do a lot more. And I want to take you on a journey of 3 case studies. One is in 2018, I was in Afghanistan. I was based in Kabul. The second one is a project that we ran in Soweto, and there's a gentleman here from Coca-Cola who actually helped us with this project. And then in 2013, we worked extensively in Limbabashi, Kolwezi, and Matoshi in the DRC. These stories are not about the vegetation. It's not about the difference in religion or the difference in language. These stories are to remind you that it doesn't matter what country or where you're from, everyone understands the basic concept of family. So when I say I'm worried about my brother, my dad is sick, my mom is in hospital, all of us understand each other. So we don't have to have these long, lengthy discussions of where we're at. In Kabul, 2008, I flew in, very naive, had these massive dreams that I was going to make a massive conservation difference in a war-stricken country. I met 2 other women. They very quickly became my best friends. One is from Finland, and she worked with women. So she taught women how to give natural birth without getting sick. The second is from Germany, and she worked with artists. So they were there to preserve the artistry, the woodwork of the people of Afghanistan. So we arrived, we had these dreams, we had these plans. Day 3, first bomb. We go into lockdown. We've been trained for this. We know what is going to go on. The thing that they didn't tell us is we're not going to be able to speak to our friends. We're in lockdown for hours. We don't know if they're still alive. Then that call comes. I'm okay. Okay, good. I'm okay. Okay, good. The next day we go to work. And Cookie used to love playing with the kids. In Afghanistan, it's too dangerous for them to run around the streets and play like kids in South Africa. So they used to take to the skies. And you'll see here, this is Cookie playing with kites with the children next to her office. So what they do is they lift the kites and they play across, but they don't leave home so their moms can look after them. And this was a game that Cookie would play with the next door neighbor from her office almost every lunchtime. So every day I would phone Cookie, how was your day? And she'd say, oh, that kid, I don't know if it's a boy, if it's a girl, but she beats me every day. Then it wasn't long after that. Kati was kidnapped. And the reality sets in. I'm here to do conservation, to save nature, and I can't think of it. I can't fathom it. I drive to work. We pass children in the street that are walking over rubble from the bomb the day before. We're watching little boys carry wood and all sorts of plants just to burn because it's so cold at night. But yet, I must tell you, don't burn that material. We have to conserve it. How? And I was so confused. What do we do? Next day, Cookie again plays with the kids in the sky. Then the one day she sends me this photo. The little girl that was beating her every day is this little beautiful girl. How do you not fall in love with her? She is incredible. But yet, I must say to them, don't catch the animals, don't eat the animals, don't burn firewood. How? I'm so confused about my profession. Soweto, 2019. Now, any of the Gen X's, think about it like Golden Girls. Imagine it, 2019. So we're in Soweto, very different ball game for us, more than 11 languages. We have an amazing gentleman from Coca-Cola who helps translate. This picture is actually a picture taken in the DRC. The thing is, when you go and you do huge public participation, day in and day out, you start meeting the people on the ground, and you start recognizing them. You might not know their name, they might not know yours, but you do start to recognize them. One night, late at night, we had a public participation meeting and a woman collapses. I phone an ambulance. They say to me, where are you? I explain. They say to me, we're not coming. I said, why? They say, it's too dangerous. In that moment, my heart sank. No one's coming. This person's life is not important enough for anybody to come. That night, the person who helped me was an illegal miner. And then I thought, how did I stop seeing them as human beings? When did I stop seeing them as human beings? This photo is in the DRC. And when you walk amongst them, which we did, there are children everywhere. They have left school. They've left school to make a little bit of money very quickly. Kolwezi, 2023. If you travel with me in Africa, I always have my camera, I'm always taking photos. I love taking photos of people. We're at an airport, I take my camera out and take a photo. Huge noise. I don't understand French, I know I'm in trouble, and they've come, and all I know is they're going to arrest me. That's it, I've taken a photo at the airport. This is the photo, it's quite famous in our office. A complete stranger out of nowhere calms the situation down. I do not know his name. I don't know the man who is an illegal miner in Soweto. I don't know his name. When we drive away, I think. Thank you. How do I say thank you? Again, I'm confused. I'm in rehabilitation. We are focusing on restoration, growing plants, bringing back habitat. But how do we do this when so many people are struggling with day-to-day life? Okay, so a very clinical slide. If you are an expert in our field, when you look at these slides on the right, that's an open cast pit and that's a waste rock dump. You can quantify it. X amount of hectares means X amount of restoration needed. Very quantifiable. Very similar to ESG frameworks, XXXX quantity. On the left is what we call influx. When there's a mine, huge communities come into the area. Again, we quantify it. X amount of hectares, X amount of impact, we either have to offset or what we have to do. This is what other people see. This is what we see on the ground. So everyone thinks I fly into Africa, spend my life in the bush. To a part, that is true. But how do you not fall in love with the children that you meet on these trips? Sometimes when I come home, and I still struggle, we leave them behind. And we have all these solutions, but are we really considering them? On the right, or on the left, which way? the one with the charcoal. So that's a really good photo, and I was really glad I got that photo. And when I got home, I looked at it 100 times. That little boy is a teenager. That is his life. He looks tired. How many kilometers did he push that charcoal? And again, I think, oh, but I'm going there and I'm telling them not to burn. How? How am I doing this without thinking about these people and these children? So we believe at OMI that the most important SDG is well-being and human health. We need to take their well-being into consideration first and foremost. Once they are healthy in every way, then you can go back and say, okay, please stop burning. So this is financial well-being, occupational well-being, environmental well-being, mental well-being. Do you know how many people we met in Soweto who had depression? All ages, women, men, they really struggled. No one was asking them if they're okay. No one was asking them if they need a hug. Connection and relationships, physical well-being. But what we do is we think we can have one blanket answer, grow a ton of vegetables, and they're going to be okay. They're not going to be okay. And until we understand that, we're not going to achieve our SDG targets. So what do we need to do? We need to bring back hope. The friend of mine that was kidnapped 4.5 months after she was rescued, well, she was rescued 4.5 months later, and I was the first phone call that she made. And I asked her, how did you survive? We were trained, but it's different. How did you survive? And her answer to me was, I might have gone to bed really depressed and really sad and not sure if tomorrow's another day. Before I closed my eyes, I'd hoped that tomorrow they would rescue me. So you must go to sleep every day with hope. So what we have to do is we've got to install hope back into these children's lives and not dictate what they're going to do. Find out what is their personality. They have these cute little personalities. You might want them to be a teacher. They might want to be a pilot. But they're not dreaming that far because they don't have the ability to dream that far because all we are giving them is a charcoal job. You're going to burn and you're going to make charcoal. So here is a fascinating and very inspirational story. This beautiful woman on the right, her name is Margaret. She is able to make these earrings from bottle tops. So my entire team are wearing these earrings. These are plastic, recycled plastic. Can you imagine going into a community where these girls that you pass on the road that basically go up and down collecting water and the basics, say to them, you know what, we could help you be a designer and maybe one day sell your earrings in New York. International trade. We have them. We have those innovators in Africa. Why are we not connecting them with the youth? Community-centric philosophy and action. Skill matching for meaningful employment. And when I say skill matching, take the time to find out that child's personality. They're all super cute. And they really have these amazing ideas. The speaker before me, Kevin, said that one of the things that you need to do is, now I lost my train of thought. Kevin, help me out here. You can't, no, it might have been actually one of the questions, the lady who asked the question. The people on the ground have the answer. They have the answer. We can actually follow through because they're experiencing it. So we have a lot of policymakers and people sitting in offices, but are you experiencing what they're experiencing? And most of them have the answer. We just need to help them. We need to help them understand business and how to connect between the boundaries. Education, skills transfer, economic diversification. For some reason, this photo always wants to make me cry. This little boy was fishing, and he followed me while I was doing work. I can't speak French, he can't speak English, but he was so interested in what I was doing. And I always think of him. I go to bed at night and I think of him. He might be a future scientist. And we've missed this opportunity because I don't know his name. I'll likely never bump into him again. But for one day, he brought me so much pleasure just by following me around. Art, expression, youth leadership programs. This lady in the yellow, she's incredibly beautiful in person. Her name is Princess, and she is able to make furniture, shoes, and a host of different things with recycled material. Why are we not marketing her enough? Why are we not speaking about her? Why are we not supporting her? And she is based in Burkina Faso. A speaker earlier today also spoke about building trust and fostering cooperation. For us to build trust, we need to spend time with these young innovators. We need translators with us. We can't just guess what they're saying. And we really need to allow them the opportunity to speak to us in their own language. The translation barrier for us in Africa is really difficult, and we've started to move with translators, and it makes a world of difference. So that's why our motto is powerful solutions, gentle delivery. Don't forget the people behind the project. Don't forget the smaller, more important things. And be gentle with them. They are scared. Be kind to them. Move in faith and move in kindness. These children photos stick in my head. When I go back to bed at night, I always think we need to connect them to innovators, to young innovators. We need them to give them a face so they know that one day they can be different. They can do something else. And I want you to think about this. Why is SDG 3 not the most important SDG for all of us? Thank you.
Well, Robin, thank you so much for showing us how turning mines into gold mines of biodiversity and gold mines of community collaboration. It's not just a dream, but it currently is happening. Thank you for telling us how OMI Solutions is doing it. Just a reminder about our 5 lucky winners of the Coca-Cola Beverages South Africa mini desk fridges. Remember, this was the lucky draw conducted from the ticket holders. We've got our winners now, and let me announce them just before lunch. If you can stand where you are. Leanne Modley from the University of Johannesburg. Congratulations. You're one of our winners, Leanne. Well done. Unondumiso Khatebe from ENX Africa. Johan Oosthuizen, IBIS Environmental Social Governance Consulting Africa, Pty Limited. Well done. To Sarah Mutswani Sibilota from Tepiso Branding Solutions Pty Limited. Congratulations. And Kiara Lint from S. Rimmon Form. Congratulations. Please make sure that you all make your way to the Coca-Cola Beverages South Africa booth upstairs during lunch to receive your fridge. All right, now let's turn this food for thought into a feast for your stomachs. Lunch will now be served, so an opportunity for all of you to recharge and refuel. It's your personal pit stop. It will be served on the rooftop, so use the lift into floor number 6, and you can enjoy lovely rooftop vibes. You're welcome to come back down and eat here in the main arena if you wish to do so. Please make sure that you are back by 2 p.m. And speakers, once again, please return your microphones to the sound booth before that. Dig in, and we'll see you at 2 o'clock.